Hello people, Kristen here, and welcome to my speculation video. After the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd, every Nintendo fan is speculating on the new system, but one thing is on our minds. Why that pricing? We can't answer why Nintendo games are priced the way they are, unless your uncle works at Nintendo. During their hands-on press events, they've dodged the question. However, we can answer the question for one particular subject. After the Direct, Nintendo released a series of interviews from their Act the Developer series, all about the Nintendo Switch 2. From the coverage seen, it seems like not a lot of people are talking about the information shown here that often. So a spotlight on our particular part. Nintendo Switch 2 editions? In the Direct, we saw three types of games that can be played on Nintendo Switch 2. The game editions were confusing. So to recap, the first type of game being Nintendo Switch 2 games. These games are developed for the Nintendo Switch 2 in mind and only run on a Switch 2. Maybe because of the new power that the system offers, or exclusive controls like the new mouse control mode on the new Joy-Cons. Either way, these are guaranteed to work on the Switch 2. The second type of games are Nintendo Switch games. These are old games from the original Nintendo Switch that run on the Nintendo Switch 2. This isn't universal, as we'll see later, but most first-party games work well with games that require certain gimmicks, like Labo being the exception. The third type of game is Nintendo Switch 2 editions. These are Nintendo Switch 1 games, but with additional features added in. Essentially, these are games we've seen before, like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Party Jamboree. These are the same games we've seen before, but with new features and changes like higher FPS, camera support, or completely new modes. This edition is like a paid update or DLC to an existing game. It can run fine without it, but it adds a bit more. It still counts as one game, but these games can be resold on store shelves for more. Wait a minute, aren't we skipping something here? A cynical person would immediately bash on Nintendo Switch 2 editions, thinking, doesn't this mean that we just have to buy our game library? Again? Isn't this just corporate greed? For a long while, companies such as Electronic Arts, EA, have made their stance on the used market clear. They hate it. They don't get the money the used game stores or resellers do. Instead, in the past, the companies have sold physical games with codes that can only be used once, and then make the game less complete otherwise. Most recently, games usually come with pack-in DLC that, intentionally or not, do a similar function. Why should I have to pay and then pay again? So some could say that these new Nintendo Switch 2 edition games could have just been free updates if you got a great deal buying someone else's used games. Nintendo making you pay that fee to transfer them over. But wait, let's examine that. If that's the case, then why make Nintendo Switch 2 edition games like this? As I said before, Switch 1 games work perfectly well without the edition pack. Are they really hoping people would pay $10 to $20 for the HDR graphics? Well, in the Ask the Developer, we get our answer. Switch 1 games don't automatically work on Switch 1. But wait, that can't be right. Didn't we just say that Switch 1 games are compatible? Yes, but not without effort. In the past, Nintendo has had a weird way of getting backwards compatibility working. When you emulate a game, you're spending system resources on faking a game's console's RAM, its CPU, etc. But these are resources not used to just play the game. So if you try to emulate a game close to modern hardware, it usually has a performance dip. Takehiro Dota, technical director at Nintendo's planning and development department, had to say this. If we tried to use technology like software emulators, we'd have to run Switch 2 at full capacity, but that would mean the battery wouldn't last so long. Nintendo has done fine in the past, though. Why now? Because they're not emulating. Their solution is to simply hide another console under a console? What? Take the Nintendo 3DS for example. Inside the 3DS are just some components of a standard DS. The system boots up into 3DS mode, then to a specialized DS mode that is capable of running DS games. This allows the game to run smoothly on hardware it's used to. It's more efficient, runs faster, and requires less work. A similar thing happens with the Wii and Wii U. Despite appearances, the Switch 2 isn't the same as the Switch 1, just with parts swapped out. Tetsuya Sasaki, a member of Nintendo's technological development division and the technical director of the Switch 2, stated that both Switches don't use an existing operating system. Because of differences in game console hardware and PC hardware, it's easy to get that development isn't the same as dropping the old operating system in a new shell, like PC gaming does. So what are they doing for the Switch 2 to make it run Switch games? The interview likens it to simultaneously translating the code. As Sasaki puts it, the conversion is being performed on a real-time basis as the data is read in. The interview didn't touch on it more due to it becoming very technical, but what Nintendo seems to be doing is writing a compatibility layer. This is similar to what we've been seeing recently with projects that make a native PC port to the older games. A compatibility layer is simply a program working to turn calls into code for certain parts of the old system into equivalent parts on the new system. If you're a Steam Deck or a Linux user, this is what Wine and Proton are. It might not be one-to-one, but it's probably what most people think of it as. Nintendo has since released a list of third-party games that either just straight up don't work on the new console, or just have performance issues. Among the games, we can notice trends that may or may not line up with this theory, one of which is the Arcade Archive series, being present on both lists. Having a game go through two layers seems iffy. However, having something like a compatibility layer isn't as easy as simply having the old console. There's no guarantee this will work for all games. Sasaki mentions they're checking all Switch games for compatibility. All 10,000, one by one. Jeez. It's not as easy as copying the game for a port. Nintendo has to maintain a general all-purpose code to fix every Switch game in existence. That's not something that can be fixed in a weekend. So they have to pay game devs again to go back and update their old code. However, expectations are high for the Switch 2. Koichi Kawamoto, the producer of the Switch 2, stated, "Right from the beginning, we wanted the new system to be able to play Switch games, but back then, we were told there'd be technical challenges." Dota later added, "If a new feature like Game Chat is available not only for Switch 2 games, but also for Switch games, I thought it would create chemistry that would enrich the gameplay and add completely new experiences. So with that in mind, we decided we wanted the new system to run all Switch games, as far as that's possible. If we couldn't achieve that, it wouldn't feel like a worthy successor to Switch. Even though it doesn't make additional money for the Switch 2, it makes the Switch 2 work more simply because it has more games. As a consumer, it feels nice for things to just work as is, but it's not particularly profitable. Certainly, the issues with the game market still prop up, and this system of only adding compatibility doesn't just make new improvements, just makes the game run the same as the old console. Surely, with games that run poorly or not as great, we can do better, right? Dota said, "When we tried running Switch games on Switch 2, there were some where loading times became faster or game performance became more stable, so we realized that the overall gameplay experience could improve." Well, we still have a last option. Game-specific enhancements. Maybe a tweak works better for one game, but not all games. Add it as a specific enhancement, since Nintendo's own in-house library is the one that they have the most control on. They can even add in-game changes that directly modify the code. So this is how we get things like Zelda Notes, which adds Google Maps to Breath of the Wild? Alright then. A defender of the pricing would say that this is a way for Nintendo to get back their cost for doing more work on old games. These are optional upgrades that could be used to fund fixing every other game. However, there are some critiques to this. The biggest one is Switch 2 edition pricing. On paper, this is nice. Grandma doesn't have to worry about bundles and expansion packs and all that. Her kid wants the new Mario game on the new Nintendo. So all Grandma could do is two things. she could purchase the original Switch 1 edition, which still works on the system, and maybe the kid could use a spare gift card to purchase the expansion, which might unlock new levels if they wanted. Or grandma, if she's cool, could buy the big box that just says Switch 2 on it and be guaranteed that it works still. No need for weird download codes or charts, but we're forgetting that physical games, when they get older, usually get cheaper. People do tend to want the latest and greatest. When people see a new $40 game, they think it's worth $40. So re-releasing that game, even with the extra work for more than the original sale price, people are going to riot. Not only that, I have a personal issue with this. It hurts collectors like me, who want to get both editions due to wanting to have a complete physical collection. Using the digital code means that I can't have it on my shelf, although that's not important as price. I'm not sure if Grandma's that cool or that financially solvent to buy an $80 game for their grandkid. I think that you can and should be able to pay the devs for the additional work they do, while also not making an old game cost $80. I just hope that with time, sales, and pricing adjust down to a reasonable price. I'm hoping that the Switch tax or games not going down in price on the Switch isn't a thing that happens this generation. Either way, I think that the work that these developers do, regardless of the decisions of the corporation itself, should be known, especially in an industry all about making things look easy. There's a saying that goes, if you do your job correctly, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. While it's right to be critical of the pricing and certainly warranted, there is actual extra work in the background that is intentionally not shown that people should actually see more of. It's like Disney and their Imagineers. Nintendo is a company and wants to hide the parts that make it work, to make it look effortless, magically. But I think that is devaluing the developer's work and is making Nintendo itself look bad. The information for this was in a side article hidden in the depths of the website that needs several clicks to get through, and that's practically a crime. I think that more people should know more about what goes into the magic and appreciate what developers do to get the full picture, as well as having more empathy towards game developers. As a company with a long history and a reputation for being fair to the consumers, I think that Nintendo should be better about showing this. It does nothing but hurt their own reputation regardless of their strategy. While this is happening though, I highly suggest seeking out these tidbits and spreading them with others. I got a lot out of reading this, and it told me a lot of fun design elements that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. I'd also suggest spreading the word on what development is like and elevating the devs' voices if possible. I hope this gives you something to think about in your endless internet arguments. What do you think about the pricing? What are your thoughts on the recent Nintendo Switch 2 Direct? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and see you people next time. Bye-bye! Wait, I think it's this end. Bye-bye!